Welcome to the Deep Dive. So, if you've been keeping track of the whole tech versus creative industries thing lately, the friction around artificial intelligence, well, it's just been heating up. A
Mm.
lot of fighting, really, not much partnership.
Mm-hmm. A lot of tension.
But today, we're looking at something genuinely different, something pretty rare, actually. We're diving into this big moment of industry unity. Kind of cuts across all the usual battle lines. Spotify, the streaming giant, has just put together this ethical framework, and they've done it with basically the entire global music world. Majors, indies, the lot, all aiming to define AI's future in music.
Yeah, it's quite something.
So if you want to understand the blueprint for how tech and creativity might actually, collide and hopefully figure out how to coexist, this is probably the document you need to get your head around for the next decade.
Right. And our mission today is really to break down this alliance. Specifically, we need to analyze those four core principles they've set out, because this isn't just some corporate press release, right?
No, definitely not.
This is the whole chain, the platform, the big right shoulders, the independents, all saying, okay, these are the rules for generative AI.
And the scale of it.
Wow.
You mentioned it, but let's be clear.
It's unprecedented, really. You've got Spotify there with Universal Music Group, UMG, then Sony Music Group, SMG, Warner Music Group, WMG, all the big three.
The majors, yeah.
But crucially, like you said, they didn't just stop there. They brought in Merlin and Believe, who represent a huge chunk of the independent sector. Getting those three majors plus the key indies all lined up, that's a serious show of force.
It feels like the industry's drawing a line in the sand, saying, look, we lead this or it just runs right over us. And that core idea from Spotify, it sets the stage for why now. They actually put it in writing. Their argument was basically, if the music industry doesn't step up now, AI innovation will just happen somewhere else.
Right, without permission.
Exactly. Without rights, consent, or compensation. It really feels like a move born out of maybe an existential threat.
Oh, absolutely. It is. And that threat level is what made this unity possible, I think. We've been in this period of really raising AI tensions. Just think about the specific worries artists and fans have been talking about lately.
The voice cloning stuff?
Yeah, the unlicensed voice cloning, that's a big one. And just AI models scraping up copyrighted music, for training without any permission or payment.
So that background noise is getting pretty loud.
Definitely. And the fact they got UMG, Sony, and Warner, I mean, these guys are historic rivals. They rarely agree on anything. Getting them all on board is, well, it's monumental.
Right.
This tech has been so divisive. But I guess the alternative, just letting unregulated AI take over, was scarier than working together.
You really feel that urgency. And Spotify, they're not just, making promises to the labels externally. They seem to be trying to build some trust here by backing it up internally, too.
Yes.
Well, they've set up this dedicated AI research lab, a whole product team focused on designing AI tools. But the key bit is how they say they're doing it. They claim it's in close consultation with artists, producers, and songwriters. Trying to make it collaborative,
Making it transparent. And that transparency push, it extends to their really strong position on copyright, which, let's be honest, directly challenges that whole move fast and break things vibe you get from other parts of tech.
What did they actually say on copyright?
They were really explicit, and this is critical. They said, some voices in the tech industry believe copyright should be abolished. We don't.
Wow, okay.
Musicians' rights matter. Copyright is essential.
That's drawing a clear line.
It's more than just values, right? It's strategic. It's like a declaration of war against any startup thinking they can just scrape Spotify's catalog without consequences. They're clearly siding with the rights holders here, not the data scrapers.
That statement is incredibly important. But playing devil's advocate for a second, this unity, does it feel a bit, fragile?
How do you mean?
Well, you mentioned the historical divisions, but we also know this alliance comes right after some pretty sharp friction points between Spotify and artists.
Ah, you mean the Helsing thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, controversies like artists, King Gizzard was one, pulling their music because CEO Daniel Ek invested in that defense tech firm Helsing. That caused a massive backlash.
It did.
So the fact they can just sort of paper over that friction and unite so quickly on AI, doesn't it suggest this is maybe driven more by commercial necessity, fear of their IP being diluted, rather than some sudden newfound love for creators?
Look, that's a very fair point. It absolutely has a strong element of the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Hmm.
The threat from generative AI just ripping up the whole economic model of music,
Yeah.
well, that's clearly big enough to force these rivals and even skeptical creators to the same table.
Okay.
It shows that the economic stability of the music ecosystem, which Spotify absolutely depends on, is under threat. And that threat is bigger than their existing fights.
So self-preservation for the whole traditional music economy, essentially.
Exactly. An act of self-preservation.
Okay, so with that context set, let's get into the meat of it, the actual substance of this alliance. They've laid out this foundational blueprint for AI development going forward. What are these 4 core principles supposed to govern?
Right. These 4 principles are meant to be the ethical foundation. Everything built on top should be, in theory, artist first.
Okay.
So the first principle is maybe the most pointed one. Work with right shoulders, not around them. It's all about prevention, not waiting to get sued. The commitment is to build new products only through upfront agreements, not by asking for forgiveness later.
That specific phrase, upfront agreements, that feels really significant coming from a big tech platform.
Mm-hmm.
Because for years, the tech playbook has often been launch first, deal with the lawsuits later, hasn't it? This sounds like a real cultural shift, committing to permission upfront.
It is, exactly. And what's interesting is that wording, it seemed like a pretty direct public dig at those AI startups facing big lawsuits right now.
Like Suno and Udio.
Yeah, reports mention those names in the context of Spotify wanting to avoid their mistakes. It's Spotify saying, look, we're not playing in that legal gray area. We need pre-cleared access. And that gives them a huge edge, right? Make sure their AI models are legally solid from the get-go.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to principle 2 then. This one seems aimed right at the creator. Choice and participation.
Simple idea. Yeah.
Simple idea, but maybe revolutionary in scale. The promise is artists and right shoulders will choose if and how to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the idea itself sounds great, ensures alignment with creators' values, all that. But let's be critical again. How on earth does a platform as massive as Spotify, with tens of millions of tracks, countless right shoulders, how do they practically implement that? How do they track that choice? What does consent even look like for, say, a songwriter who sold half their catalog 30 years ago to 5 different companies?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? And it points straight at the logistical nightmare baked into this whole thing.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing for a major label with a neat roster to maybe opt their artists in or out of a training pool, okay. But it's totally different for an independent artist. Or, even trickier, the thousands of different parties holding tiny fractions of publishing rights for just one song. How do you track them all down?
Seems impossible.
The mechanism for choice needs to be absolutely watertight. Because if the system is clunky, or if the default is opt-in unless you dig through 4 menus to opt out,
Then the promise is kind of meaningless.
exactly, the promise of choice evaporates. So this principle, it hangs entirely on the technical details they haven't actually revealed yet.
Okay.
It's probably the biggest potential vulnerability in their whole ethical framework right now.
That feels like a huge hurdle. Okay, let's shift to the commercial side then. Principle 3. New revenue streams and transparent credit. This sounds like the economic lifeline the industry wants. They're pledging 2 things here. Creating wholly new revenue streams for right shoulders, artists, and songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
And guaranteeing clear credit for their contributions.
Yeah, the money and the credit.
So if they're guaranteeing new revenue streams, what are they even hinting at? What could those models look like? Is it just slightly better royalties or something different?
Well, the speculation is definitely leaning towards something beyond traditional royalties, because AI models aren't technically streaming a full song in the same way, right?
Right.
So the revenue might need to come from licensing the actual input data, or maybe licensing the AI prompt tools themselves.
Huh, interesting.
You could imagine models where, say, if you use an AI tool that was trained heavily on Artist X's style, Artist X gets an upfront license fee, perhaps, or a cut of the subscription money for that specific tool, totally separate from normal streaming income.
Okay, so paying for the training data itself.
It suggests they get that the current royalty system just isn't built for generative AI. They need to invent a new payment mechanism that actually rewards using the underlying IP as training fuel.
That's a fundamentally new way to think about IP value. Okay, and finally, Principle 4 loops back to the creative act itself. AI as a creative tool, not a replacement.
The don't replace humans clause.
The assurance here sounds firm. Our products will not replace human artistry. They will give artists new ways to be creative and connect with fans. So when they talk about creative tools, what kind of concrete things could Spotify's AI lab actually be working on right now based on that principle?
I think the focus is really on augmenting workflows, not replacing the artist. Think about tools that could, say, instantly generate stem mixes from a final track, or create endless variations of ambient soundscapes for background listening.
Practical stuff.
Or maybe, really practically, tools that generate customized instrumental backing tracks for artists to practice with, or use for quick demos, or even for touring.
Okay, I could see that.
Imagine a songwriter, right? They need a specific kind of funky bass line for a demo, but their usual session bassist isn't free for weeks. An AI tool, trained only on properly licensed data, could potentially generate 3 decent options based on the genre and mood they input.
And the human still chooses.
Exactly. The human artist is still the curator, the director. They get the credit, they get the revenue. That's the vision they're selling. AI as the super-powered studio assistant, not the artist.
It's a compelling vision for
Yeah.
sure. And it seems to be landing well with the industry bosses. It's crucial to remember this isn't just Spotify talking to itself. The heads of the world's biggest music companies are publicly putting their names to this, endorsing this whole framework.
Yes, absolutely. And their statements really hammer home that commercial and legal urgency we talked about. Take Rob Stringer. He's the chairman of Sony Music Group. He zeroed in on the licensing piece. He called this partnership an acknowledgement that direct licensing in advance is the only appropriate way to build them. That word, appropriate, sounds like a legal warning shot to everyone else.
Yeah, appropriate carries weight there.
Yeah.
And Robert Kinkle at Warner Music Group, the CEO, he echoed that, right?
He did. Made it clear WMG is only interested in partners who get the need for new AI licensing deals. Deals that specifically protect and compensate the rights holders.
So, protection and compensation are now just table stakes, non-negotiable for the majors dealing with AI tech.
Seems like it. And what's interesting is Lucian Grange, the boss at UMG, didn't just talk about protection. He framed it as growth. He called this work essential for enabling Gen AI products within a thriving commercial landscape.
So not just stopping the bleeding, but actually trying to build something new and profitable.
Exactly. They're not just trying to put the AI genie back in the bottle. They're trying to design a new, profitable bottle for it to live in.
What about the independents? Are they just going along for the ride?
Doesn't sound like it. They sound genuinely optimistic, actually. Dennis Letagallery, CEO of Believe, he talked about wanting to co-develop value creative AI tools. And Charlie Lexton from Merlin, representing tons of indie members, said they're partnering to genuinely enhance the creative and commercial ecosystem. Enhance, not just defend.
So broad buy-in. And how did Spotify's own leadership frame this whole thing?
Well, they're definitely positioning it as a landmark moment. Gustav Soderstrom, one of their co-presidents, he framed AI as the most consequential technology shift since the smartphone. Big words.
Wow.
And he directly compared this whole effort to how Spotify tackled piracy years ago, saying they built a legitimate, value-driven market when the alternative was just chaos.
Drawing parallels to their origin story, basically.
Pretty much. And his counterpart, Alex Nordstrom, the other co-president, he brought the core message right back, emphasizing that technology should always serve artists, not the other way around.
That feels like the ultimate thesis statement for this entire framework.
I think so.
So, okay, let's step back. Synthesizing all this.
Yeah.
This deep dive seems to show Spotify really trying hard to position itself as the bridge between music and machine learning. They're making a very conscious choice, it seems, to build this tech with the industry, not launching it at the industry.
Yeah.
Trying to steer AI towards fairness, sustainability.
Before the unregulated stuff just completely destabilizes everything.
Yeah.
And this collaboration, getting the majors and the indies together under one ethical banner like this, it probably is the most significant alliance we've seen between big tech and the global music industry so far.
It really feels like they're trying to write the rules for how the next generation of music gets made, shared, and crucially paid for.
Preemptively defining that future. And that strategic push leads us right into the final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on. This whole deal, this entire framework, it really hinges on those 4 principles working in practice, especially that promise of choice and participation.
Right, we talked about the scale of that challenge, actually implementing that choice for every single artist, every single right shoulder, everywhere.
So here's the question to really mull over. For this ethical framework to actually succeed, Spotify has to build a system where every single creator, big or small, famous or unknown, can clearly, easily, reliably grant or deny consent for their work to fuel AI training models. Given how incredibly complex global music rights already are, what technical solution can Spotify possibly build? What system can they engineer that ensures that choice is truly meaningful, truly scalable, and actually impossible to just bypass? How do you really redefine consent for the age of these massive generative AI training sets? The blueprint looks good on paper, but the engineering challenge, that's really just beginning.